Please note that the content of this video may contain errors. If you would like to view subtitles, please use the subtitle button on the screen. Now, let's begin our topic, the life of John Hancock, signer of the Declaration of Independence. We will explore the life of John Hancock, known for his striking name, and unravel his fascinating story and the background to the signing of the Declaration of Independence. John Hancock's destiny began to unfold as early as his birth in 1737. His family belonged to the wealthy merchant class in Massachusetts. His uncle, Thomas Hancock, was a successful and prominent merchant in Boston. This business success would later have a profound impact on John's own life. John spent his youth in an excellent educational environment. He enrolled at Boston Latin School in 1723, where he studied classical literature. He laid the foundation for his future leadership. He then graduated from Harvard University with honors and immediately joined Thomas & Co. Through this experience, he acquired business know-how and rose to prominence in Boston's commercial scene. As conflict with Britain intensified in the 1770s, colonial merchants demonstrated various forms of economic resistance. John, in response to Britain's strict tariffs, also engaged in smuggling activities using his own merchant ships. This activity was a thorn in the British authorities' side and led to his involvement in legal proceedings. From this time on, he not only pursued his own economic interests but also developed a political consciousness, leading him to a political career. What's interesting is that John Hancock is wealthy, but he was willing to take risks and rebel against British policy. The reasons he fought in Boston, despite the risks, were likely due to the beliefs he'd inherited from his family and his firm faith in the future of an independent America. Just think, he would later become the first to sign the Declaration of Independence. At this point, this was only the beginning of a story that no one knew. John Hancock's entry into politics marked a significant turning point in his life. Born in 1737 into a wealthy merchant family, Hancock received an early education. He grew up in a family environment steeped in commerce. In 18th century Boston, economic power supported political power and trade was key to prosperity. John graduated from Harvard University at a young age, where he developed both business knowledge and a deep political interest. Influenced by his uncle, Thomas Hancock, he took over the trading business. He built a reputation in the region as an economic pillar of Boston. This marked his first foray into political activity. A major event was the enactment of the Printing Act of 1765. This act imposed new taxes on the 13 colonies. The impact on the colonial economy was enormous, sparking widespread resentment among merchants. Hancock also expressed strong opposition. He feared his trading business was in jeopardy. Economic interests and patriotism drove him to action. During this period, he formed an alliance with Samuel Adams, who became an important political partner. Adams was a central figure in anti-British movements in Boston, and his influence was significant. Hancock, along with Adams and others, protested against objectionable taxation as part of the campaign against the Printing Act. This marked the beginning of his political career. Later, as dissatisfaction with British policies grew, his leadership and contributions to the community were recognized. He naturally rose through the political ranks. Finally, in 1770, he was elected to the Massachusetts Provincial Assembly. He used this position to further expand his political activities. He worked hard to make the voices of the people of Boston heard throughout the colonies. Behind these activities was not only his own economic interests, but also his belief in the greater purpose of building a new nation. His life is a story of a brilliant transition from merchant to politician. Underlying it all was a strong will to change 18th century America. Tensions with Britain were rising in 18th century America. John Hancock, who rose from merchant to politician, was at the center of this movement. Hancock began to resent the harsh British policies that affected his own business. He particularly took issue with the Stamp Act of 1765 and the Tea Act of 1773. These laws unilaterally determined British taxation and trade in the American colonies, severely impacted the colonial economy. Hancock initially benefited from British policies as a Boston-based merchant dealing in imported goods. He benefited from British policy, but as taxation became more severe, his resentment grew. His political stance gradually became anti-British, and he began to work with Samuel Adams and others in the revolt. By this time, Boston, as a commercial and political center, was already a hotbed of anti-British protests throughout the colonies. Then, in December 1773, Hancock held a rally over how to deal with the British East India Company's tea ships that had arrived in Boston Harbor. He held a rally that would spark the Boston Tea Party. Hancock, Adams, and others resolved not to hesitate to take any measures to avoid tax collection. Following this rally, patriots disguised as Native Americans boarded the ship and took the bold step of dumping the tea cargo overboard. This incident went beyond mere rebellion against the tax. It went down in history as a clear symbol of rebellion against British rule. The British government was outraged and enacted even stricter laws. However, this harsh response only served to inspire Hancock and other colonial leaders. It was a major step toward the American Revolution. Through this series of events, John Hancock transcended his role as a merchant and became a true leader for building a new nation. John Hancock's appointment as president of the Continental Congress was a crucial moment in the American Revolution. At the time, conflict with Britain was deepening and unity within the colonies was needed. Hancock is taking center stage during this difficult time, where various interests and agendas intersect. He demonstrates skillful leadership. First, a little background on Hancock. He was a wealthy merchant. His economic power bolstered his political influence. His wealth supported his activities in the Continental Congress and earned him the trust of other politicians. At the time, Hancock was elected president of the Continental Congress in May 1775. The road to independence was not an easy one. At the Continental Congress, the 13 colonies, each with their own interests, came together. He was engaged in heated debate over the merits of independence. Conservative forces, particularly those opposed to the treaty, often called for restoration of relations with Britain. On the other hand, radicals, who strongly advocated independence, sought complete freedom from Britain. Hancock skillfully united these two forces, paving the way for the subsequent Declaration of Independence. What is noteworthy here is how Hancock sought to gain the support of the colonies. Through speeches and letters, he persuaded the colonies of the need for independence. His close friend Samuel Adams and excellent orators and strategists such as John Adams supported his efforts. His close collaboration with these people helps to forge bonds between the colonies. And on July 4, 1776, these efforts reached a major milestone. The Declaration of Independence was finally adopted at the Pennsylvania State House in Philadelphia. At this time, John Hancock signed the document for the first time. His large signature remains an iconic landmark in American history. Also interesting are the conspiracy theories and anecdotes from that time. For example, some say Hancock made his signature large because he was nearsighted. Some say he intentionally enlarged it to show King George Roman III of England. Can you see this? It is said that the size was intentionally enlarged to indicate EOS. Either way, the signature is seen as a testament to his determination and courage. Either way, his signature is seen as a testament to his determination and courage. Hancock thus went on to play a leading role in the War for Independence. His leadership and foresight held the key to a major event that would change American history. After the American Revolutionary War ended, John Hancock was thrown into a new political environment. Although the United States achieved independence, many challenges remained. To solidify the foundation for national governance, it was necessary to establish a stable government and strengthen the economy. In this situation, Hancock was called upon to provide leadership. Hancock became the first governor of Massachusetts in 1780. This was where his political skills were put to the test. One of the first problems he faced was the post-war economic turmoil. He implemented various policies to rebuild society and the economy devastated by the war. He particularly focused on curbing inflation, which had risen during the war, and creating jobs through public works. However, Hancock's policies were not always smooth sailing. It was also a time of growing resentment against heavy taxes and dissatisfaction with government interference. Shays' Rebellion is one example. The uprising, led by farmers and veterans, revealed distrust in the new government. He attempted to resolve the situation through careful dialogue and persuasion. One of his key priorities as governor was the expansion of education. Hancock believed that developing human resources through education was essential for post-war reconstruction, and he devoted himself to establishing a public education system. This is considered the first step toward the development of education in American society. As a politician, John Hancock, he needed to be a trustworthy leader for the people during the chaotic post-war period. His charisma and foresight have made him a historic figure. John Hancock's final years were a time of social and economic upheaval. Following the Revolutionary War, Hancock once again assumed a prominent position on the political stage of the newly formed United States. At the time, he served as governor of Massachusetts, where he continued to wield political and economic influence. His leadership combined the skills of a seasoned politician with the credentials of a successful merchant. Hancock's greatest challenge was how to achieve economic stability for the newly formed nation. The post-war recession and high debt burden threatened people's lives. In this context, his commercial knowledge and public trust proved to be valuable assets. Hancock was also actively involved in the nation's monetary policy. Using his knowledge, he promoted policies to curb inflation. His attitude demonstrated his sense of responsibility as a politician. Interestingly, despite Hancock's gradually deteriorating health, he remained in public office. He continued his political activities until the end. Historians say that gout and other ailments plagued him in his later years. Still, his commitment to prioritizing public service continued to earn him the respect of his fellow citizens. This shows just how strong his spirit of service was. After his death, John Hancock's legacy has not only been felt during the founding of the United States, it has even extended to current politics and economics. Historians analyzing Hancock's achievements have noted not only his political skills, but also the influence his personality and economic policies had on future politicians. The article also touches on the influence his personality and economic policies had on later politicians. In other words, his presence has left a lasting mark not only in the fields of politics and economics, but also in the hearts of many. It can be said that his value has been engraved not only in the fields of politics and economics, but also in the hearts of many. Furthermore, through his most famous signature on the Declaration of Independence, Hancock's name has also become a symbol of the sign. Today, the term John Hancock is sometimes used to refer to a signature. This speaks to the strength of his signature and his own charisma. Hancock's life makes us reconsider the role of a leader and the meaning of his existence. His way of life offers lessons that many people can learn today. Through the life of John Hancock, we learn that individual courage has the power to shape history. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and like it.